The Convair F-106 Delta Dart, often regarded as the ultimate interceptor of the United States Air Force, holds a unique place in aviation history as one of the most advanced all-weather interceptor aircraft of the Cold War era, designed as an improvement over the earlier F-102 Delta Dagger in the late 1950s, representing both the peak and the eventual decline of America's specialized interceptor program, and its development stemmed from the need to defend North America from the perceived threat of Soviet long-range strategic bombers that could deliver nuclear payloads across the Arctic. Its roots began in the Air Force's 1954 interceptor program, which initially resulted in the F-102, but after that aircraft proved to have limited speed and altitude performance, Convair went back to the drawing board to redesign the delta wing configuration into what became the F-106, a sleeker, more aerodynamically refined aircraft with a new fuselage, advanced Pratt Whitney J75 afterburning turbojet engine, area-ruled fuselage shaping, and a sophisticated Hughes MA-1 integrated fire control system that linked directly with the semi-automatic ground environment (SAGE) air defense network, allowing the aircraft to be guided by ground-based radar stations until it was close enough to its target to employ its own weapons systems, which primarily included the AIR-2 Genie unguided nuclear-tipped rocket, AIM-4 Falcon guided missiles, and later a 20mm M61 Vulcan cannon in a rotating weapons bay. The first F-106 flew in 1956 and deliveries began in 1959, and although originally intended to be called the F-102B, the extensive redesign justified renaming it F-106, highlighting how much more advanced it was compared to its predecessor, with performance figures that placed it at the very forefront of its time, including a maximum speed of Mach 2.3 about 1,525 miles per hour, a service ceiling exceeding 57,000 feet, and a combat radius of around 575 miles, making it a formidable high-altitude interceptor. Its distinctive sleek design with a sharp nose, low-mounted delta wing, single vertical stabilizer, and smooth fuselage gave it an elegant yet menacing profile, and it became one of the fastest single-engine jets in the world during its era, able to set records such as in December 1959 when Major Joseph W. Rogers flew an F-106 to an official world speed record of 1,525.96 miles per hour, a record for a single-engine jet fighter that stood for decades. Operationally, the F-106 entered service with the Air Defense Command (ADC), later Aerospace Defense Command, and it served primarily within the continental United States as part of America's layered air defense strategy, and though it never saw combat, it spent decades on continuous alert status during the most tense years of the Cold War, scrambling to intercept unknown radar contacts, shadowing Soviet bombers near U.S. airspace, and serving as a visible deterrent against nuclear-armed intruders. Its systems were highly automated for the time, with the Massachusetts One fire control system capable of controlling the flight path and even firing missiles automatically once target lock was achieved, though pilots often found it both revolutionary and frustrating due to reliability issues, yet its sophistication set a new benchmark for integrated avionics in fighter aircraft. Another interesting fact is the famous Cornfield Bomber incident of 1970, when an F-106 entered an unrecoverable flat spin during a training exercise, forcing the pilot to eject, yet once the pilot left the aircraft, the shift in weight distribution allowed the jet to miraculously recover on its own, flying smoothly and landing almost intact in a snowy Montana field, a bizarre occurrence that highlighted both the quirks of aerodynamics and the ruggedness of the design. The F-106 fleet consisted of two main variants, the single-seat F-106A and the two-seat F-106B trainer, with the latter being fully combat-capable despite its training role, and in total, about 342 F-106s and 63 F-106Bs were produced, far fewer than initially envisioned, largely because the advent of intercontinental ballistic missiles (ICBMs) reduced the need for manned interceptors, while at the same time the Air Force began to shift its priorities toward multi-role fighters like the F-4 Phantom II. Nonetheless, the F-106 remained in frontline service through the 1960s, 70s, and into the early 1980s, serving with units such as the 5th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, 27th FIS, and others across bases in the U.S., Alaska, and Iceland, with its mission of rapid reaction defense against potential Soviet bomber incursions remaining relevant until newer technologies and doctrines took over. One of the fascinating technical aspects of the F-106 was its use of a rotating weapons bay door, which minimized drag during supersonic flight while keeping weapons safely stowed until deployment, a clever engineering solution that was emblematic of Cold War innovation, and its delta wing design provided excellent supersonic stability, though it also demanded high landing speeds and made low-speed maneuvering more challenging compared to conventional wing fighters. Its engine, the Pratt Whitney J75 P-17, delivered around 24,500 pounds of thrust with afterburner, giving it blistering acceleration, and pilots described it as smooth and powerful, though maintenance crews often complained about the complexity of keeping the Massachusetts 1 system running reliably. Over time, upgrades kept the F-106 viable, including improvements in electronics, radar, and armament, and despite its specialized mission, it earned high praise for its performance and handling, with many pilots considering it one of the finest interceptors ever built. After being phased out of regular service in the early 1980s, the remaining F-106s were converted into F-106 target drones for live fire training exercises, extending their operational life into the 1990s, with many being shot down in weapons tests, though a number of surviving examples can still be found today in aviation museums across the U.S., preserved as reminders of an era when speed, altitude, and nuclear armament defined air defense. Interestingly, unlike many aircraft of its time, the F-106 was never exported to Allied nations, being reserved exclusively for U.S. use, a reflection of its specialized role in America's continental defense strategy. Another tidbit is that the aircraft had no internal gun for much of its service life, relying instead on missiles and rockets, but after missile reliability issues became evident, a gun pod housing the M61 Vulcan was retrofitted to some aircraft to provide a last-ditch close-range option. Though overshadowed in popular imagination by more famous fighters like the F-4 Phantom, the F-15 Eagle, or even its own predecessor the F-102, the F-106 Delta Dart represented the pinnacle of the dedicated interceptor concept, embodying the technological optimism of the Cold War while also illustrating the limitations of designing aircraft around narrowly defined missions. In retrospect, aviation historians often view the F-106 as a bridge between the early jet-age interceptors and the more versatile fourth-generation fighters, and while it never fired a shot in anger, its deterrent presence contributed to the stability of the nuclear standoff, ensuring that the U.S. had a rapid, supersonic, nuclear-capable response to any aerial threat. Among enthusiasts, it remains beloved for its elegant delta wing shape, blistering speed, and unique place in history, with many pilots nostalgically recalling its smooth handling, powerful climb, and almost futuristic avionics. And as a final note, the F-106 Delta Dart's legacy is not just as a machine but as a symbol of the Cold War's most intense period, when the defense of American skies was entrusted to a handful of supersonic jets and the men who flew them, forever securing its status as one of the most iconic interceptors ever built.